Welcome to Holistically Speaking. I am Morella DeVoe, your host. Our mission with Holistically Speaking is to be the avenue through which the voices of holistic health reach you at the time you need it most. That voice today is my dear friend, Megan Waite. She is a wonderful health coach. And welcome, Megan.
Thank you.
Megan, you're here to talk about what you do, health coaching, and I'm interested also in the name of your program because you call it Does It Fit? I'm really curious about that. Megan's program is called Does It Fit? And I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later, so we'll leave people in suspense. So Megan, I want to start off by asking you, just in general, what is health coaching? Because a lot of people might have heard of it. It sounds like something that's growing, but a lot of people might not know exactly what a health coach does.
Sure, great question to start with. Thank you. So health coaching is really helps people understand the steps on what to do. Everybody knows, or we think we know, what to do. Right. When we're taking care of ourselves and moving forward towards whatever our health goals are in the moment. But it's a matter of actually doing it is where we tend to get held up, because then we have those little triggers that come up and our self-sabotagers that really sets us back. And then we allow ourselves to say, well, we'll try again on Monday. Right. Or we'll start tomorrow. So a health coach really helps you to stay focused and focus on your reason why you want to make a change in your health. They ask you those really hard questions that we oftentimes don't want to ask ourselves because it's emotional and it's hard to move forward with our health goals when those things are coming up. So a health coach is there to be supportive, not to necessarily tell you what to do, but to help empower you to move forward and take that little step each day that is otherwise hard to do on your own when you're feeling alone. So it's better together.
Yeah, and as you say, like, it's almost like everybody knows what to do. I think everybody has a sense of, oh, I know what's healthy, but people don't necessarily take action, and that's where I'm hearing you come in as a health coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much information out there now where it can be so overwhelming. It's everywhere. It's in the tabloids. It's in every magazine you pick up. It's all over the news and the internet. You can push a button and everything comes up under the sun in terms of what you might be wanting to find for information. And so information overload is absolutely one of the things that I hear with people, where it is just nice to have it pared down and be very simplistic and effective with, okay, what do I really need to know? Is this true or is this not true? There's so many old wives' tales out there that it's nice to have a buddy to really ask that question of.
And demystifying things for people as well. Yeah. And obviously you know that I'm a health coach as well, but I really want to put myself in the shoes of the person watching at home or watching this YouTube video later and not really knowing what you and I might do as a health coach. So I imagine somebody wondering, well, what sort of education or training do you get as a health coach? Because some people might think like, oh, yeah, I'll coach you on your health, but they might not know, well, are you a doctor, are you a nurse, or are you a nutritionist? So just tell us a little bit about the different types of education that you might have gotten that help, kind of form the tools that you might use.
That's a great question as well, because there's not any sort of requirements here, in the state of Vermont or even nationally yet in terms of health coaching. You don't need to have a particular degree or particular certification. There's a lot of programs out there now to help you become a health coach and help you to become certified and use particular tools. So it's really nice to ask that question. If you're going to work with a health coach, to know, what form of experience do they have, what kind of training do they have. So to answer that, my background is a physical therapist, so I worked in sick care for about 15 years. So where I would help people, after the stroke, after the heart attack, after the diabetes would wreak havoc with the body, amputations, that sort of thing. So my experience comes from the medical field in that regard. And over time, I just had such a passion for recognizing that, man, if people had been empowered with a little bit of information, some support, and they could have made just a couple of little tweaks and changes in their lifestyle, they wouldn't have had to be where they were in those situations and had the blessing of going into people's homes and seeing how it not only affected them, but their entire family unit was affected by the choices and lifestyle choices that we make. So I did take a health coaching training as well, so that's probably important to know.
Yeah.
And then other certifications beyond that.
Right.
But, yeah.
And it's interesting to comment. I really heard you say, I used to be in sick care. Yeah. So working with the people after they've had the big health crisis, and maybe, God forbid, maybe now they're dealing with a permanent disability that could have been preventable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You always have a choice to make a change, and you can change your path, you know, whether you're diabetic or you have heart disease, or no matter what direction you're currently on, the moment you raise your hand and say, yes, you know, I'm ready to make that change, and I'm ready to work with a health coach like yourself or myself, man, that is powerful. And you can completely change the path that you're on at any time, and not have to end up where I used to work in sick care. And I think that is so powerful every time I see people make those changes and completely adjust where they were headed to where they're going now.
So tell us then a little bit about how you help them. What is it that you do when you're working with someone?
Yeah, good question. So my sister was actually my first client about 6 years ago. And this is really passionate for me because I come from that overweight family. I have the heart disease in the family. I have the diabetes. I have the autoimmune diseases. My sister is 11 years younger than myself, but she was very overweight. And so, you know, I got to hold her in the dressing room while she cried. Because she couldn't shop in the local store, and recognized that she really had to order offline, which was just this huge moment for her and for me. And so from that moment forward, I just knew that this was my path, was to be able to help people who were really ready to make a change. So the type of people I work with, you know, my sister was someone who she was going to the gym. She was working so hard. She was so proud of herself. She was going every day, started going to the gym, and she was not a gym person. That was not her style or interest growing up. You know, she didn't play sports. She had other interests. And so but she started going because she knew that's what she needed to do. And so it wasn't until she sprained her ankle from running on the treadmill, because it was too much weight on her joints, that it was that moment of complete defeat when she thought, my gosh, you know, here I thought I'd been doing everything right, and now what? That's it. You know, I have no hope, and she had no hope left. So that is someone that I just love to work with, people who, what used to work no longer works. People who have tried everything and have done that yo-yo or have failed, and just kind of feel that sense of defeat, like it's not for me, it's for everybody else but me. And I love to really help support people in knowing that they have that choice to make that change, that it's not, you know, it's not lost on them, and they really can move forward at any time, but it really is understanding that it's not a quick fix. And I think that's where that mindset, I talk about healthy mindset, really comes in for people, is helping them understand that it's not just an instant.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too that I often like to think about in terms of health coaching, and what you're saying is a lot of that, you know, if we think of the athlete who has all of this talent, you know, potential talent, the athlete needs a coach to help them really tap into that potential and really become the athlete, the superstar athlete that they can be. And so, you know, for all of us as human beings, you know, we have other skills, other talents, and we kind of know that we can be healthy, but we don't have the skills or the tools to necessarily tap into that. And that's where you come in as a coach. You can help them tap into those strengths, into their resources, right?
Absolutely. Well, we tend to focus on, and this is just human nature, we tend to focus on what didn't go well, what we didn't do right, what we failed at, what we wanted to do, what we wish we had done. And we really tend to beat ourselves up. And so one of the roles that a health coach plays is helps people to really focus on the successes that they have, and just building on those little successes each day. I say to my clients, what went well today?
Exactly.
And they write back, either texting or they'll call or email, and there'll always be a little slip in there of, well, you know, I wish that I hadn't done this, but this went well. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we're getting it now.
Exactly.
We're getting there.
I could have done better, but.
So I really help them to target those successes, because we can't build on negativity.
Right. Yeah, no.
It doesn't bring us where we want to go.
Right.
So when we can build on those successes, man, sky's the limit. And each day it just kind of creates that momentum and that snowball effect. And that is so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about Does It Fit? Where does that come from? What does it fit mean?
Isn't that awesome?
Yes, and it creates curiosity, so I think it's great.
I love that. So Does It Fit came up with the rhetorical question of does it fit? And I love that everybody answers that in a different way. Sometimes I get, oh, yeah, that's what I think of when I go clothes shopping. Or does it fit? Nope, it doesn't. Or does it fit? It just, whatever is on top of their mind in the moment is how they rhetorically answer that question.
Interesting.
And then right off the bat, I'm able to know exactly what they're thinking about. Yeah. And it kind of cues me into where they are and what their goals are.
Interesting.
And so it's really kind of an open-ended question, and it's meant to be just that. It's not specific to do your clothes fit at all, because that's not what the program is about. But just does your lifestyle fit? Is it working for you? And if not, what do you want to do about it?
So then if somebody watching at home is hearing you say, well, this sounds really interesting, so what would this look like? If I were to give Megan a call, what would health coaching for me look like?
Good. Yeah, so we start off with a bunch of questions. So just as you're doing now with me, I get them talking. Yeah. And of course, usually the first question is, so what inspired you to give me a call? Let's talk about that. And I do it over the phone. Yeah. And I love that. And the people I work with really love that too, because it creates that safe container for them. A lot of times when we're doing this sort of thing, sitting here, you're watching me, you're looking at me, it creates a little bit of fear of judgment. I just had a baby about 3 months ago, and people have said to me, oh my gosh, you had a baby 3 months ago, you look fantastic. And instantly, I felt like I was being judged.
Right, yeah.
And so I've now learned to say, oh, well, I practice what I preach. Thank you for noticing. Yeah. So the same thing happens when I first meet potential clients, and I talk with them on the phone, and we have that kind of safe space because they can be really free and open with whatever comes up for them. Right. So we talk about, what is their goal? What does that happy, healthy life look like for them? You know, who's around them? What are you doing when you're there? What's different? What are your activities in the day? And we start to dream. Right. And we don't often get that permission to kind of take down our guard and dream about
imagine.
What does that look like? What could that look like? What is that possibility? And allow ourselves to really go there. And then, of course, we talk about, well, what has worked before, what hasn't. We get down into the kind of nitty-gritty of things as well. But that's really where we begin.
And so that's a consultation of sorts that you do? Correct. And then do they then kind of speak with you on a regular basis, or is it online coaching, or is it via email, or all of the above, or what?
It's a combination of the above. I really wanted to offer, and what I have found that works really well for people is that people are busy. And life happens, and there's not necessarily one avenue that works really well for everybody. Yeah. And so what I do is we do the over the phone or Skype consultations. We do a session every week. About half an hour is enough time to figure out what's gone well, from the week, what's the plan for this coming week, and walking away with a couple of new tricks in the hat or steps moving forward. But then they also receive daily email where there's information in there. And I focus on what I call the 3 M's.
Okay. So, and what are the 3 M's?
It's healthy meals, healthy emotion, and healthy mindset. Okay. And so they receive a step of the day in each of those areas where we really build on the previous day. And there's also an audio function. I know if you're like me, I get a ton of email. Yeah. And so to read another email can be sometimes daunting, though they're short. Right. But they can push the play button and listen to the audio when they're in their car or at work. I just worked at a CPA firm, and they loved that, being able to just hit play every single day and focus on them while they continue to work through. Right now they're doing tax season. Right, right. So they receive that as well. And I also offer a community. I call it the Does It Fit lifestyle community, where they can call in, and there's a bunch of us there who
Oh,
are there to
lovely.
support one another, ask questions,
Lovely.
and know that we're not alone, because that's the hard part.
Yeah, and that usually makes a difference for people when you have the sense of community and you hear somebody ask a question and it's like, oh, I have that question too. That's so great. I'm
Yes.
not alone, like you said. So I'm wondering if there are specific, I don't know if it's health conditions or specific types of people that you work with. Earlier you mentioned the people who maybe have tried a bunch of things and are feeling a little bit discouraged. But are there other kind of characteristics or health conditions that you particularly love to work with?
There are. I love working with folks who are either pre-diabetic or diabetic, because oftentimes what they discover is that they've tried to follow a particular diet plan that was given to them, or they are, buying the sugar-free candies, the diabetic treats, and they don't understand why their blood sugars are still, doing the yo-yo. And so as soon as we can kind of take a step back from that, and I really help people implement structure into their day and into just healthy eating, and we look at general habits. And once we can just implement a couple of simple strategies in their day around that, my gosh, it is like a whole new ball game, and it has simplified everything for them versus counting their sugars, though they do as well, but we kind of look at it at a globally. So that's a lot of fun, because by the end of the first week they go, oh my gosh, my blood sugars are stable because I am now having a snack at night before bed, or I'm fueling my body in the morning within an hour of waking, or whatever that is. Now for every individual, of course, there's little tweaks that happen as we have our conversations over the phone. But so diabetics are great. That ends up being a lot of fun. Folks,
who else?
Folks that who maybe are struggling a little bit with their weight. So I work a lot with women whose metabolism has changed. So, what used to work is no longer working. They would do those quick fixes, and it's not working this time, and that's so frustrating. So those are great people to work with. It's a lot of fun, because now we can really take a look inward at what's going on in their life, what's going to work for them in their busy day, and they get a moment to kind of take a time out and focus on themselves and make those changes.
Are there, just like you were mentioning with people who have diabetes, are there any kind of common strategies that usually work for women whose metabolisms are changing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it really comes back to just your energy level and blood sugars. So we all have blood sugars. Doesn't mean that you're diabetic. But when you can really understand your body and think of your body as something that needs some energy, when you can fuel your body frequently and be able to get your metabolism into a nice, even, happy place and not stressed out. When we wake up in the morning, we have that coffee and the bagel, and then we have that mid-morning crash. Our body's having to do that up and down catch up. And so it's in stress a lot. And once we can kind of figure out how to fuel your body frequently, really put it in that happy place using low inflammatory eating techniques, oh my gosh, body gets into a happy place, it's no longer stressed, and then you can start to see the side benefits of that, whether it be weight loss, better energy, sleeping better, reduction in the daily hot flashes. Those are all common side effects or benefits of making some very simple adjustments in strategy. So a little while ago, you mentioned something about, as a coach, part of your role was asking people the difficult questions that maybe they weren't willing to ask themselves. So what might be some of those difficult questions that we could each kind of be a little bit more honest with ourselves? Yeah, that's great. Well, what I really love to do with people is first really starting with their why, and really kind of getting down and dirty with that. So I call it the why that makes you cry. So first and foremost, it's really figuring out why you want to make this change in your health. And it's not about the number on the scale. It's not about trying to necessarily fit into those pants that you have hanging up in your closet. But it's really about what's going to be different when you get there. What is it that you're really, really wanting to achieve? Is it to have the energy at the end of the day when you get home to run around with your kids? Or is it to be able to physically get down on the floor and play with your grandbabies when you're, watching them?
Right.
Is it to be able to, it was a gentleman that I had spoken with, and his why he had figured out was to be able to climb Mount Mansfield with his college son, who he had kind of lost a connection with. And his son, they tried it once, and his son was so far up ahead, they didn't get to enjoy that quality time. So his reason for wanting to make a change in his health had nothing to do with himself necessarily, but it was to be able to build that relationship with his son and find a common thread, and have that connection. So first and foremost, that's the first thing we do, is really figure out why you want to make this change. And once we nail it, then we put it all over the place. We put it on sticky notes, and you put it in your car, in your date planner, and on the fridge, and we just need to keep going back to that.
Yeah, and that's what really motivates people. I have never found that losing 10 pounds motivates anybody. Or, fitting into a dress or whatever. It's the connection with family. It's the, maybe the dream of accomplishing something they've never done, like hiking a mountain or whatever. It's like those things really motivate people. So that's wonderful. What other difficult questions do we need to ask ourselves?
Yeah, the next question I have people ask themselves and write down are, what are those triggers that come up in your day? And it's kind of like, oh, man, she knows. So meaning, like, what are the stresses that come up in your day that make you, whether it's, run to the cupboard if you work from home, or if you're in the office, what happens in the office that causes you to do what you had not planned on doing? And what are those stresses that come up, or life events that come up, or birthday parties, or holidays? And these are things that never, ever, ever go away. But we tend to use them as excuses. And I know this because I've done it myself. So, but once we can really kind of pull that out, put it on paper and say, okay, these are my triggers. These are the things that cause me to kind of derail myself and self-sabotage. And I use them as excuses. And now I see it, and now I'm aware of it. And then, I do it again, but now I'm more aware of it. But we always have a choice to make a change. And so it's kind of in that moment that we can make that decision. If we have a plan going into it, what we plan on doing doesn't mean we're always going to do that. But maybe we'll do a little piece of that. And then we can build on that success. And then next time that event comes up again, we can maybe do something a little bit further. That's kind of how you create this as being your lifestyle change, not just that quick fix that doesn't stick.
When you anticipate what might happen and you name it and you start creating a strategy, it might lead you somewhere different.
Correct,
So your big why, what really motivates you, what might be your triggers, And and just as a side note, I love to say, if you find yourself eating Ben and Jerry's at 11:30 at night, it's not because you're hungry, and I think it's what you're saying, right? It's there's something else. So if you can really see what, like you're saying, what's that trigger?
I had a client this week, and he said, I'm doing great, but man, it's that before bedtime time when I crash. I know I need a snack before bed, but he said, I really overdo it. And he said, I'm hungry. I'm so hungry. I don't understand. I said, are you hungry or are you bored? And he went, whoa. I don't know. Let me think about that. And the next time we spoke, he said, I think I'm bored, now I know it. And now we had to come up with a plan. And so that's where we were left with was, okay, now let's come up with a plan. Doesn't mean that there's any perfection to it at all. There is no perfection in this. But it's really about building on your successes and what do you do right most of the time? And continuing to kind of build on that. So that's a lot of fun. You need the support, and then you need the celebration. You got to celebrate when you're doing well. Of course. And that's the next question is, what do you celebrate with, and how do you do that?
And it's so funny because a lot of times we in general haven't learned how to celebrate without it being associated with food.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I come from the farming family, and it was the 3 square meals a day, and it was, what are we having for dessert?
Right.
And what's our meal for tomorrow?
Yeah.
You know, so.
So I want to ask you about some of your favorite stories, like client success stories, something that might resonate with someone watching and say, oh my God, I wish that were me. Maybe that could be me someday.
Yeah, that's great. I had worked with a woman, and right off the bat, by the end of the first week, one of the things that she really wanted to do, she was a night shift worker. And so this is a really hard job to have, where you're awake all night long and you got to keep going and you're really thrown off. But her energy was low. She was having to really get through her shift by, pounding the Mountain Dew or the caffeine. And what we did was a really simple strategy around just adding a little bit more water to her day, and then starting to kind of set that scale, a difference in that scale from the caffeine to the water, and then fueling more frequently. Yeah. By the end of the first week, she didn't make a ton of changes, but what she did do was she, increased her water intake, started fueling more frequently, and then we really talked about, protein sources and that sort of thing. And oh my gosh, her energy came up. She found she wasn't even interested in grabbing for that Mountain Dew anymore, and it really changed her energy level in the morning. She felt like this new energy when she woke up that had never been there. So that was so much fun, to be able to hear about that.
That's phenomenal. And there are so many people addicted to Mountain Dew or Coke or, whatever it is, and it without fully understanding what it's doing to their bodies. So that's phenomenal that with simple little strategies like you coached her on, that she was able to.
Right. Yeah. And then even for the athlete who's already doing a lot right.
Yeah.
Right. They already know what to do. They do a lot right. Even working with, I had someone that was an athlete, and it was so much fun because they already know what to do a lot of the time, but there were definitely a lot of little tweaks that we could make, and in just making a couple of those same adjustments, because when we really delve forward into focusing on, if we're training for a sport, we tend to kind of forget about those little things that make such a powerful impact.
Yeah.
We went back to fueling more often, and oh my goodness, what a change in the workout. They thought, no, it can't be. Something that simple, wouldn't make that much of a difference. Right. But what happened was they ended up finding that they had so much more energy throughout the workout, really sustained it, especially by pulling in low inflammatory eating, and really kind of stabilizing their blood sugars. They weren't diabetic, but getting to that point where they could have that nice, even-keeled energy really was able to support them in their goal and in their training goal. And so that was so much fun to kind of have that aha moment that something, as simple as that could have a huge impact, and even something like a training workout.
So in the couple minutes that we have left, I want to be sure to show viewers how to find you. So we're going to pull up a slide. So Megan's website is doesitfitlifestyle.com, and I capitalized the I so it would be a little clearer. doesitfitlifestyle.com. And you can also find Megan's YouTube channel, where I'm sure you're posting lots of different little
we
tips
talked about, yes, all of this, the why, the triggers, the plan, the celebrations. Yep.
And so that is Megan Waite, Health Coach. So just look up Megan Waite, Health Coach on YouTube, and you'll find Megan's YouTube channel and all of these wonderful tips. So in the minute that we have left,
it went so fast,
it goes
Marilla.
so fast, just like that. Always goes so fast. So are there any final thoughts, tips, or why you're so passionate about this that you want to leave our viewers with?
Oh my goodness. I guess I would just love to leave viewers with, you are important and you're worth it. And whatever it is for you today in this moment that you know that you wanted to make a change in, but you haven't done it yet, go ahead, write it down, and just do it and see what happens, because that could be so powerful for you in bringing you to where you want to be. So thanks so much for having me.
It was such a pleasure to have you, and I feel like there are a million questions that I was starting to kind of line up. It's like, oh, we could talk about this and that. So much more that we could talk about, and it was such a pleasure to hear you talk about the possibilities. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope to see you next time. Take care.